Good afternoon and welcome to Beholden to Truth. It is your humble host, Joshua, here for another episode where we're hanging out in the car, doing our happy hour thing. You know how it goes, getting my pre-workout in me, nice and caffeinated, getting ready for a back day. It's transitioning into summer. It's like 85 degrees out here. It's beautiful. Probably going to be able to get into the pool for the first time of the summer here in the next couple days. So we're feeling good. I'm very, very happy with the season changing. I'm just not a winter, fall kind of guy. Spring is okay, but even then, I'm still not like fully charged. I get my 4 months during summer, maybe 5. That's my happiest time of year. So I'm happy. And this is a good thing because, the last vlog I did was not so happy. I was frustrated about personal situations, business situations, trying to expand the platform and some obstacles we've run into there. And I did this vlog titled The Personal Toll of Being a White Advocate. And the feedback on that was very positive. You guys were very supportive. And it was just me, pouring my heart out about the last 3 years of my life, the various tribulations of trying to run this business. Not easy, and oftentimes can be discouraging, but I concluded that vlog. If you watched it, you need to go watch it because everybody's saying it's one of the best that I've done. I've gotten a lot of really kind DMs and even talked to some people, voice and video call, stuff like that, saying they really appreciated the message. I talked about the struggles building the platform, but then I probably went on a 25-minute rant about the black problem. And really, it's a minorities in general problem, but specifically, we got big issues with the black people because their culture is just even furthest out from compatibility with white Europeans. And, Jews they're really competing for neck and neck. Like, they're tied for number one in terms of cultural incompatibility. We seem to do okay with Asians, Hispanics, not so much. Blacks, not so much. Indians, not so much. And listen, not everybody is made to live together. We know that at an individual level. It shouldn't shock you to find that out at a group level. It's like really surprising to me that people struggle with accepting the reality that not all the people of the world are meant to live on top of each other. And when you artificially impose that expectation on them, you actually create conflict. Far more conflict and negative repercussions than strengths. Diversity is our strength, right? So that was a great episode. I really enjoyed recording that, and it was very therapeutic to get some of that off my chest. And I previewed that the next Substack exclusive that's coming out is going to get deeply into some of these conflicts of interest in terms of racial groups, in particular blacks. It's way worse than you guys think. I was working on the supplemental information for it this morning. I'm making a PowerPoint presentation to drive the agenda of that special episode, and the PowerPoint will become an ebook to support it as well. And it's like 40 pages long, guys. I mean, it goes into, I don't want to spoil too much, but it talks about how black people feel about whites, but also all other races. It talks about the history, it talks about slavery, reparations, the economic impact, the cultural impact, the impact on crime. And that, it turned into, I thought it was going to be like 5 or 10 pages just to kind of help me do the episode, and then it turned into a whole ebook. So that's going to be valuable for you guys because I want that to proliferate. And I'll add a disclaimer to it that the purpose of sharing this information about black people's sentimentality towards whites, the impact on our economy, the impact on our safety, the impact on our future. It's not to create animosity towards blacks. It's to awaken whites to the reality that we live in and the false illusion of cooperation and false illusion of gratitude. It's the opposite. I was like, these people self-segregate. They don't really like being around white people more than they have to be. They love white civilization in terms of the creature comforts and the opportunity, but then they still bitch about that they don't have enough opportunity and that it's being withheld from them based on their skin color. And so I talk at great lengths, or I will talk at great lengths, about the misconception that these people have not received reparations. When you start going down the checklist of how much we have done over the last 150 years post-slavery, it's hard not to be angry that they're still out there genuinely believing that we have not given them enough assistance to get them on a level of parity with your average white person. It's unbelievable when you see the volume of reparations that have already been given. So that's coming soon. I'm working on that. And, it's hard not to talk about that subject without also explaining how all this happened. A, how did slaves even get to America in the first place? But B, how have black people been indoctrinated with all these false beliefs of ingratitude and oppression and so on? We all know that that's the Jews, but it's like I already wrote 40 pages just about black people and their current condition and their condition over the last, particularly the last 60 years post-segregation. And so it's like, is this supposed to become an entire replication of Europa, the last battle? Am I supposed to go here and explain how far back the Jewish problem goes, because that's at the root of the black problem and the whole multiculturalism problem? And so it's like, this thing can very easily, it's called scope. You can suffer from scope creep, where you start to try to incorporate more and more content, more ideas, because you genuinely want people to be informed, the historical context as to how we got here. We can't just like start with 150 years ago emancipation and what we've done since then. So I'm trying to figure out where to draw the line on this special. And is this going to have to be a series where we talk about the Jewish problem and its origination? And the thing is, if you want to talk about that, you got to go back 2,000 years. Okay? Like, this isn't, it's just what happened on the outgrowths of Zionism and creating Israel, and that creates a compromise and a conflict of interest with having Jews run our domestic and foreign policy, the creation of the Federal Reserve, creating all this economic pressure on everybody. The Jewish problem isn't unique to America. Like, need I remind you what happened in Germany? Need I remind you what happened in England? Need I remind you what happened in Spain and France and 109 other countries? So that's the thing. It's like, you just look into what's going on with the blacks and suddenly you find out, okay, the hip hop thing, we know who's creating that. We know who has infiltrated the CIA and used that to create all of this Marxist agenda. We know where Marxism came from. We know who owned the slave ships. We know who held the slave auctions. We know why they were closed on Jewish holidays. We know that of the 1% of America that owned slaves, within that 1%, nearly half of them were Jews, which is pretty unusual, seeing as they were like 0.0 something percent of the entire country. So trying to figure out what the right scope is for just this one message of white people need to self-segregate. We can get into the Jewish cause of all of this, and we can get into why it is that black people around the globe have failed to create a civilization anybody wants to be anywhere near. We can go and talk about race realism and IQ differences. We can study the economy of Africa and the religious fabric of Africa. And we can weigh that against imperialist endeavors and colonization and see which one is more to blame for the failed continent of Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa. And we have to do that distinguishing argument of, listen, Egypt is not what you guys call Africa, okay? North Africa in general is not what you guys lump yourself in with, African Americans who are descendants of sub-Saharan Africa, who do have an average IQ of 68. We're talking about different civilizations built by different people. So I'm working on that in the background. I'm hoping to get that out sometime this week, where I'm going to do that Substack exclusive, going through those 40 pages of notes with visual aids, with all of the data, all of it. In my opinion, it's a smoking gun for segregation. It's like, okay, it's not because we hate these people. They don't like us. They take advantage of us. They don't believe that we are even owed this country. They don't believe that it's worth protecting in terms of its racial demographic. They actively vote against our interests when it comes to immigration, when it comes to installing communism. Like, there's no way we can enfold them into the future that we want. It's literally impossible. And the most important point to make in that entire presentation is that the change in demographics, it's more serious than every other social, political concern you might have. Abortion, feminism, communism versus some other form of government, economic recessions, foreign wars, who's controlling the media, all that stuff. You might think that, like, clearly all those things are like top priorities. No. Protecting the white majority of the country is the single highest priority, because you cannot undo that once it is changed. You can have an entire nation apostatize and fall away from the church and then go on to have a revival and people come back to Christ. You can go through a Great Depression and still repair your economy. You can have multiple generations of women indoctrinated with feminism, but then you can eventually re-educate them. Do you see what I'm saying? You can have pornography destroying the nuclear family and all of the problems that pornography creates. You can make pornography illegal and start working on fixing that problem, right? If you have socialist governmental policies redistributing the income unfairly and incentivizing people not working, you can reverse those policies. If you have a governmental model that is enabling all this, a democracy that is clearly not working because the people don't share a common peoplehood anymore, nor do they even share a common religiosity anymore, democracy no longer works. Democracy is only a proposed solution for people who are cohesive and homogenous and consistent in their faith. So you can change your governmental model in the future. What you cannot change is the people themselves being replaced by other people. Once they become a minority, especially when you're living under a democracy, you can't vote yourself back into leadership in the government. They're going to flip the tables on us and say, well, listen, due to the history of slavery and Jim Crow and blah, 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 we really think it's black people's and other minorities' time to lead the government. So just like we did with DEI, just like we did with affirmative action, we're going to make sure the government's actively prejudiced against white people now, once they have the majority voice to do so. Why wouldn't they do that? So white people will not be able to control the civilization that they built once they become minorities. That has to be understood. That's why it's the single most important political issue. That's why the nested ideas such as immigration and such as stealing the money from whites and giving it to people who receive double their proportion of the population, they're all tied to the people. Who is actually creating the wealth? Okay, you can't have a system of income redistribution if you are actively persecuting and replacing the people who are creating the income. You can't have European cultural standards, European governmental models, European economic models, European military, when the nation is not run by European people, when the nation is not primarily European people. Everything falls apart once America becomes a minority. Once whites become a minority in America. It's going to get bad. And that's what I'm going to try to hammer home with this presentation is I'm going to give you all the receipts, how all these minorities feel about us, how they take advantage of us economically, culturally, in education, in the media, and all this other stuff, how they've created all these double standards where we're not even allowed to be proud of ourselves. Do you understand the psychological damage? Multiple generations of white people believing that they can't be proud of their immutable characteristics of their own bloodline, of their own ancestors, of the accomplishments of their people, that it is implicitly morally wrong to be proud of your own people, while they unashamedly parade around in public holding signs, doing podcasts, lobbying people in the government to advocate for themselves because they're so proud of themselves. White pride being a literal hate speech organization or adjacent to hateful ideologies. By the way, update. This is one of the things I wanted to touch on today. I actually have some bad news. Unsurprising, but bad news. We're banned again on Instagram. Shadow banned. I got the notification. What happened was I noticed I got stuck at 39.3 thousand followers. And I was stuck for 3 days. And for the previous 15 days, I was gaining 1,000 followers a day. And then suddenly I was gaining 0. And over the course of the last month and a half, I had gained 15,000 followers. How do you go from gaining 15,000 followers over the course of 6 weeks and snowballing to the point where over the last couple of weeks you're gaining 1,000 a day, on track for 30,000 a month, to suddenly gaining 0? Your account's not banned, you still have an account. So how does that happen? It's called shadow banning. And it's not speculation. It's not like, well, maybe your reels just stopped trending. You know, maybe you had your little time in the sun, but hey, people have moved on to new content. That's not what happened. 3 days ago, I got a post taken down. It was a quote from the most well-known, recognized historical figure of the last 100 years. I quoted an individual, exact quote, no fabrications, no misinformation, no exaggerations. I quoted Hitler directly from his book, Mein Kampf, where he talked about what's going to happen with Zionism, where he said, if we allow the Jewish people to create a nation for themselves, it will become the headquarters for them to nestle power and start employing across the entire world their influence. They will protect themselves as an international criminal syndicate operating with blackmail, pedophilia, child sex trafficking rings, usury. They will actually finally have a headquarters with the military to protect themselves, and it's going to do catastrophic damage to the world. That's the quote from Mein Kampf. That's exactly what has happened. It's inarguable. Anybody who knows anything about what's going on with Israel right now, they're actively committing a genocide, 50,000 dead Palestinians, more than that at this point. They're blockaded. They can't get food and water, and they haven't been able to for months. And they're using the American military and government to finance and enable this. It's like, this is like the exact warning that this historical figure said was going to happen. And so I shared his quote. That post, that also, by the way, got tens of thousands of views. Everybody loved it because they're like, wow, he kind of like exactly predicted what's going on right now. Whether or not you think he did evil things, he very clearly predicted exactly what's happening right now. Well, that post got flagged and removed for promoting hateful groups of people or hateful ideologies. And I go through Facebook's community guidelines, and you see that they call out specifically, of all of the hate organizations in the world, they have a bulleted paragraph that says anything that talks about what can be construed as white supremacy, meaning any nation that says we'd like to be majority white, we built this place, we deserve to keep it, it needs to have white leaders. That's white supremacy. So anytime you go out and say that or post any kind of content putting forth that opinion, all right, well, that's against community guidelines. Anything that even hints of white supremacy, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean, even when you explicitly say, I'm not saying the white race of people are inherently superior in God's eyes or in some kind of ethereal worth than other people. I'm saying we build different civilizations, and I prefer our civilizations, and so does the rest of the world. That's why they move into them and never the other way around. If you want to call that white supremacy so that you can ban me, I can't stop you from doing that. Clearly, you just did it. But also in that little bulleted section, of course, is Nazism. The boogeyman. It's like the Freddy Krueger that the entire world has been told to be scared of. Nazism. Which we all know, by the way, Nazism was a political movement to do what? To protect the white majority, the German majority of Germany. Now they say, no, that's not what Nazism was about. Nazism was about an irrational hatred of Jews and the systemic murder and genocide of Jews. That's why Nazism was created. Like, no, it's not. That's just factually not true. Addressing the Jewish influence that was subverting the ethnic identity of the nation and the cultural fabric of the nation and the spiritual fabric of the nation, because those things were coming from Jews, an aspect of Nazism was addressing the Jews. That's true, but Nazism is not a movement orchestrated and created to go forth and harm Jews. Only Jews and the people who have been indoctrinated by the Jewish, Robert Maxwell created, Rockefeller funded education system, Steven Spielberg directed media understand Nazism to be that. So it's like you can't even support a previous nation's decision of how they need to structure their government, National Socialism. And you can't make commentary about, well, they had certain problems with these certain religious or ethnic groups of people who they felt like were negatively influenced. You can't even say that because that's tied to Nazism. You're banned. So my account has now been shadow banned again for 90 more days. So just to give you guys some historical perspective, this is the third 90-day shadow ban I've had in a year. Okay, so I've spent 3/4 of the year unable to share my content with new followers. Unable to go live. So they give me a 90-day shadow ban where it says your content is no longer shown to new followers. That's bad enough because you're basically done at that point. There's no way to get new followers. It doesn't matter what quality of your content is. It doesn't matter how many people are resharing it that are already following you. Due to the natural attrition and the active purging of your followers, which they do behind the scenes without telling you, because people send me messages saying, hey, I was following you and now today I'm not. By the way, a Jew runs Instagram who works for another Jew, Mark Zuckerberg Goldmanstein. So it's not just the 90 days. You can't be shown to new followers. You're slowly going to atrophy with your follower count. On top of that, they renewed the already existing 1-year ban on streaming live. So I've been patiently waiting for the last 6 months to get through a 12-month ban on going Instagram. October would have been my 12 months. So I'm sitting around thinking, it's pretty sweet. I finally got a huge follower base, 40,000 people. By the time we hit October, I'll have 75,000, 100,000 people, and I'll be able to go live and talk about these things to 100,000 people. All I got to do is just bide my time, 6 more months. We'll keep building the followers in the meantime. Nope, they shut that down too. They renewed the 1-year ban on live streaming, so now I can't go live until May 2026. So this is why it's critical that you guys follow me on Rumble for 1, YouTube for 2, Substack for 3. Because as hard as I work to grow the platform on Instagram, whether it's the follower account, whether it's doing lives, they just hit one button. And for some totally biased, unequally applied censorship ideology of certain things that we think are hateful, certain people in the past that we think are hateful, certain political movements in the past that we think are hateful. When you talk about those, we can ban you from the internet. But you're free to talk about supporting Israel and their genocide. You're free to talk about the Jewish religion that wants to invoke slavery on the entire world for all non-Jews. You're free to talk about heinous crimes of any other historical figure. You're free to talk about hating white people. You're free to talk about replacing white people in the communities and civilizations they've built. You don't think that's hateful? You're free to blaspheme Jesus Christ. None of that's against community guidelines, but quoting Adolf Hitler, who said that the Jews are going to use this nation ethno-state to create wars and to manipulate other nations into doing their bidding, all of which they have very clearly done. It's well documented by every other country on the planet. That's what gets you banned on a social media account or on a social media platform that is run by Jews. So it's like, it's not surprising, but I'm just explaining how the odds are stacked so aggressively against us that the Sisyphus pushing a boulder up the hill and it just falls back on you every time. This is the metaphorical uphill struggle that I've been fighting for 3 years. Nick's been fighting it for 8 years. Jared Taylor's been fighting it for 30 years in terms of white genocide. Very stressful. It can be discouraging at times. But like, what is the alternative? You just give up? That clearly can't happen. I explained in the first part of the vlog that some of these changes, in particular the change in the white demographic, once that happens, it's irreversible. It's irreparable. It cannot be undone.
Our country is at an inflection point. We can all feel it. And now is not the time to be a physically, mentally, or spiritually weak man. I've spent the last 10 years creating a blueprint for unfucking your life up, and it's a lot more than cleaning your room. How to achieve physical, mental, and spiritual mastery gives you a layman's understanding of how to master dieting and exercise, get the most out of your time, build ironclad mental fortitude, and leverage your faith to become a role model among men, something we desperately need right now in this time of war. I break down how to create a sustainable, flexible diet from scratch, how to organize your fitness routine, supplementation, and I dispel many myths and provide many red pills on dieting and exercise. The book is on sale right now at BEHOLDENTOTRUTH.com for 20% off. Or you can get a free copy if you're a founding member of my Substack, which would also include a one-on-one 30-minute session with yours truly where you can ask me anything. Go to BEHOLDENTOTRUTH.com right now to become the man that you were meant to be, and the man that we desperately need you to be.
So here is another altercation that I found myself in on Instagram. Can't stay out of trouble, you know? But there's this young girl, she's like 20 years old, brown. I don't know what kind of brown, but she's brown. And I'm not trying to say that derogatively. I'm just saying that she's not a white person. And it shows with her worldview. And this is an individual who I previously promoted because they were out there going after the Canary Mission, which is the Jewish-owned watchdog bully group who goes and doxes people anytime they're critical of Israel, critical of Jews, talk about Jewish influence. Well, she's brown and she sees Israel as a European colonialist endeavor, and so that's why she's opposed to Israel. And this is one of those problems where you got to be careful with who you form alliances with, because I go and share her content saying, like, look, she's over here showing you how this Jewish censorship thing works and how they blackmail reputationally and professionally and financially people who try to stand up and oppose what Israel is doing. So I gave this girl multiple shout outs on my channel saying she's doing great work, go support her. Should have known better. A, she's a woman. B, she's not white. She goes out there now after the news this week where a whopping 50 white South Afrikaners are allowed to come into America as immigrants, prioritized, A, to protect them because of what's going on in South Africa, but Donald Trump did actually use the word white for one of the first times in ages. But then he follows it up with, he's doing a press conference on, hey, we're bringing these 5 white farmers in South Africa. We're bringing these 50 white South African farmers to America because they don't deserve to be persecuted. There's a lot more to that story, by the way. It's not just because he has a soft spot for white people. There's complications there with Israel and South Africa opposing what Israel has done in the international criminal courts, the ICJ, I believe it's called. And so this is basically trying to do something that the South Africans are less than pleased with. But it's not that big of a deal, honestly, because frankly, the South Africans would love to see all the white people deported. They don't want them there. That's just the fact. So Trump's not really sticking it to them by saying, okay, well, we're going to let them come here. But anyway, aside from that, we bring 50 white individuals to America. And the response from the left side of our country, whether it's the political commentators on CBS and ABC and CNN and NPR, or it's just the idiot liberals on college campuses like this young girl who say, this is clearly a gesture of white supremacy. Allowing people to immigrate into your country just because they're white is a demonstration of white supremacy. How are you going to say that we're going to deport illegals and deport all of these people coming from the global south while actively encouraging these other people who you're only doing that clearly because they're white? It's like, okay, in the last 4 years, America allowed 10 million non-white immigrants into their country. In the last 4 years under Biden alone, 10 million non-white people to come into our country. And then you have the whole left side of the political spectrum flipping the fuck out and calling it white supremacy because 50 white individuals were prioritized to get out of a potentially dangerous situation. They're actual refugees. All these other people flooding our country, they're not refugees. They're not being persecuted. Most of them aren't in countries that are being bombed. Most of them aren't really worried about the cartels coming after them. They're just poor because they live in a shitty country. They're not actual economic refugees of war. They just live in a shithole and they want better for themselves, so they want to come here. It's understandable, but it's not our burden to take on. We didn't build this civilization as a boat for the whole world. We built it for our people. And we don't have any kind of moral obligation, not as Christians or anybody else, to impoverish and endanger ourselves and erode the civilization that we built to the benefit of everybody else, to the detriment of our own people and our own society. The Bible does not preach that. There's a major difference between charity, which comes voluntarily. The only way you can do charity is when it is voluntary. You don't have a charitable heart when I put a gun to your head and say, give me this money so I can go give it to somebody else. That's not an act of charity. That's coercion. That's communism. That's why communism is a failed governmental system, because it coerces the people. It takes the money involuntarily. It takes the output and the time involuntarily from people and gives it to others. That's not a Christian idea. That's not a Christian motivation. Christian motivation for charity has to be, it's in the definition of charity, that it is a voluntary gesture. So when people who have captured the government shove down our throat tens of millions of people at a time who don't care whatsoever about our economic interest, our interest as a people, our devotion to our progeny, our devotion to our ancestors, our devotion to our religion, they don't care about any of that. Not at all. They are coming here because they want our money and they want the safety and all of the creature comforts that living in America provides. They don't care about the people who are here. They don't care about how we got to this point. They don't care about our future. And so when you say that we have an obligation to do this out of charity, that's not charity. We aren't making the choice to do this. It's being imposed on us. It's not a Christian mission to do this. If you want to donate the money that you have to various causes, no matter what they might be, if it's supporting a foreign country, the people who are living there, or voluntarily giving your money to someone so they can get a passport and they can get a bus ticket or a plane ticket, that's one thing. But when I never even have a role in the conversation, I'm just going to work and you take 10% of my income and fund things like immigration. That 10% is just what's going to that, by the way. I'm not saying that I'm only taxed 10%. I'm taxed 45 to 50% for a myriad of other destructive reasons. Yeah, that's not charity. And so this stupid girl, part of it's because she's young, part of it's because she's a girl, part of it's because she's not white. She gets out there and says it's clearly a demonstration of white supremacy because we prioritize bringing 50 white people to America. Meanwhile, the imbalance there of whites versus non-whites to the tune of 9,999,950 more non-white people were allegedly invited into our country in the last 4 years. They weren't invited. The people running our government invited them to our country. So shut the fuck up, okay? You don't know what you're talking about. You are a literal idiot. You're embarrassing yourself. You've lost all credibility. Because your argument is that somehow the American government is prioritizing white people over non-whites. In what fucking world? You have to do such mental gymnastics. I just gave you the number. 50 versus 9,999,950 versus 50. You actually have to have a supremely low IQ or a supremely biased worldview, a supremely anti-white worldview, to believe that you're making sense when you put forth such an argument that America is currently engaging in white supremacy. Unbelievable. And so she goes and responds to me in the DMs, and I light her the fuck up because she need to be educated. As soon as I explain the sheer numbers, no response. Oh, I guess I hadn't thought of it that way. I guess I hadn't thought of the fact that America has invited in, let's see, country of 350 million people. Nearly half of it is not currently white now. Oh, I don't know, 150 million fucking non-white people. Does that sound like white supremacy to you? That's why every non-white person has to be segregated from whites. Get the fuck away from us. The way you understand the world, the way you understand this country, what you think needs to be done, what you think is even going on, is so out of touch with reality that you are a dangerous person. Literally, you are a dangerous person for how little you understand the current situation and how little empathy you have for the people who are protecting you, who have enabled you to live this privileged life in America as a non-white person. The ingratitude, the lack of understanding, it's genuinely unbelievable. And this isn't even a black person. This is just some random non-white person. I have no idea what her ethnic makeup is. Don't really care. And so that's why I'm doing the next special, to get into the numbers for you guys on how the non-white people, it's not just blacks. When I show you the data on Hispanics, it's almost as bad. It's like, when I say blacks' feelings towards whites and their worldviews and the way they vote and obviously the way they behave with the criminality and everything, I call that egregious. I don't know what's one notch below egregious for these other non-white people who obviously don't give two shits about white people and don't believe that we're allowed to create or to sustain this nation as it was historically created. Don't believe that we should be the ones running it. Don't believe that we should be the majority. Believe that they, despite having no historical role in this country, none. America may be 20% Hispanic, but it was virtually 0% Hispanic for the first 350 years. And now you have all of them showing up, taking more than 2x their proportion in welfare benefits across a dozen different governmental programs, and then sitting around crying about white supremacy when we have a crazy idea that maybe we should take these white people who are being threatened with murder in South Africa and let them come here. And when we allow 10 million of them to come into our country, they say that's not enough. In 4 years. The previous 150 million over the last 60 years still wasn't enough. If we weren't so racist, we would have 300 million of them here by now. It's only our racism that has held us back from not just becoming Mexico and being okay with that. I mean, these people are the fucking worst. The worst. And I know I'm heated, and I know it can be misinterpreted for some kind of call to action physically against them. That is not what I am preaching. I've never preached that, and I always have to add that disclaimer because people want to try to get me in trouble, want to have my platform shut down, want to accuse me of inciting violence so that I can be flagged by the community guidelines, so that my voice is stifled and I can't get this message out. That's my real life. And so the disclaimer there is, it's not a call to action to go out and persecute, harm, or do anything to Hispanics and blacks and other non-white people. It's a very clear message. We are not like them. We don't hold the same interests. They have active hostility towards our interests. They need to go somewhere else. We need to be separate from them. We do not need to be supporting them. They are not grateful for the support we've already given them. It will never be enough in terms of historical reparations, whether that's because we colonized the land and genocided the indigenous people, or it's because we hauled these people over here from the other side of the world in Africa and subjugated and oppressed them for 150, 200 years under slavery and then under Jim Crow. There's no amount of reparations. There's no amount of demographic representation that we can forfeit. There is no pleasing the people as a group. Oh, but I know this one black person. I know this one Hispanic person who's a real patriot and who totally has let go of colonization and slavery. Stop talking. Okay? Stop talking. Look at how Hispanic people vote. Look at how black people vote. Look at what they say when America does anything even remotely resembling pro-white, even as minuscule as bringing 50 white people into the country. 50. They have a public meltdown and they accuse the government of white supremacy. This is the level of delusion that these people as a group have. It doesn't matter that there are individuals who are exceptions. The influence of an individual is fractional compared to the group, especially when it comes to politics. I talk about that in my special about group behavior, where I give you 5 different methods of articulating why we must concentrate on group behavior and not the content of the individual's character.
The number one question you guys are asking me is, how can I wake people up? And you also ask, how can I help support you? And so I have a solution for both of those questions. You can head over to my Substack. You'll be able to get exclusive early access to all of my documentaries, my long format content, free ebooks, and even a chance to talk to me one-on-one. You can do Ask Me Anythings. There's several different membership options for your budget, whatever fits your lifestyle. Head on over and get yourself a subscription now.
One of those reasons is because the influence of an individual, as I said, is fractional. It doesn't even matter compared to the group sentiment of Jews, of blacks, of Hispanics. The group sentiment is white people have done historically evil things far more than anybody else in the world. They don't deserve nations of their own. And we need to go teach them how evil they are. The only way to show them that is to remove them from power by any means necessary. If that means inviting the entire global South, we'll do it. If that means capturing the media and morally berating them and using their faith against them, calling them racist, anti-Semite, Islamophobic, whatever else, bigots. If that means capturing the education system and teaching fake narratives about history, whatever it takes, doesn't matter. Destroy the white people's spirit, destroy their pride, capture the majority. I can't believe what this country has become, you guys. Anyway, I gotta finish this pre-workout, get in here, get my back day. You know, honestly, when I know it's time to wrap up a vlog, it's when I start sweating, especially here in the summer. It's like 85 degrees in the car. I need to get in there to some air conditioning, rehydrate with the rest of this, get my workout done, go home and do things that put me in a good mood, like eat dinner, spend time with my dog. You know, it's hard not to be bummed out that they swept the legs right out from under me on the Instagram growth again, but I knew it was going to happen. The last thing I'll say about that, by the way, it's not even the individual post, okay? It's not like I went too far with one post. What happened was, how this works behind the scenes on the community guidelines monitors, they have what are called dashboards. Somebody is literally sitting at a computer and there is an algorithm bubbling up accounts that are growing quickly. And it gives them an alert. And it says, hey, this account over here is gaining 1,000 followers a day. Let's just go make sure that they're doing so in a way that we approve of. So when you're a smaller account and you're getting 5, 10 followers a day, maybe even 100, something like that, and you're posting what they call radical content, hateful content, promoting hateful ideology, whatever, this goofy shit that doesn't make any sense, that is selectively applied only for certain things they disagree with. When you're a smaller account, you don't show up on that dashboard of shut that shit down now because it's growing fast. And the reason I can tell you why I know this is true, partially because I have a background in this kind of data science, but also it's not the first time I posted a quote by Hitler. I've posted his direct speeches on my Instagram account. I've posted paragraphs of his, screenshots, videos, plenty of things, memes with swastikas, Kanye talking about it, Kanye quoting Hitler. It's not until the account is accumulating such momentum and so many eyeballs. I had 13 million views over the last 30 days. 18 million over the last 90 days. And as I said, 15,000 new followers. When you are going that fast and you're making that much progress, one post got 5 million views. That's when you show up on the radar, and that's when they shut it down. And I also know this because it's the exact same trajectory that I was on the last time my account was gaining steam. I got unshadow banned. All right, new followers are starting to come in, 10, 20 a day. That's nice. Some of the content starts going viral. We're getting 100 people here, 100 people there. Suddenly I'm getting 1,000 people a week. And soon as you hit that top speed of accumulating followers and views, they pick whatever post they want. They have this loose interpretation of community guidelines violations, arbitrarily enforced, and they shut it down. It's just the way it is. And Instagram is not unique in this. You know, YouTube does the same. Twitter does the same. It's the old saying, you may have freedom of speech, but you don't have freedom of reach. Fuck you guys, okay? That's what I have to say about that. It's so disingenuous. It's legalistic. It's Talmudic. But these are the cards we have been dealt. These are the social media platforms we have to work with. These are the only platforms where there's a meaningful audience to share with. And so, unfortunately, we are subject to the Talmud's rules. So that's going to wrap it up for you guys today. I'm glad you were able to join me for another session here. Very therapeutic, as always. Look forward to this next Substack coming out. It's going to be big. It's going to be very big. It'll be exclusive on Substack for the first week or two, and then maybe I'll open it up for YouTube and Rumble. And it's going to be thorough. I mean, it's going to be a minimum of an hour. This thing might drag on for 3 or 4 hours, and I might have to do it in a couple of parts. Because as I said, I got 40 pages of material to go over, and it's not even that it's dense. You guys are going to enjoy when I go over it because it's not boring. It's not just sitting here reading you statistics. There's obviously going to be editorial commentary on the statistics, and you guys are really going to enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to making that. I like to put my suit on. I like to get in the editing suite, polish it up. That's going to be a big one. So make sure you subscribe to me on Substack because that's where it's going to show up. It's I can never remember if it's substack.beholdentotruth.com or if it's beholdentotruth.substack.com. But either way, you can find it. And obviously, like and subscribe here on Instagram. Leave a comment. That really helps the algorithm. You got to support my parallel economy systems over there on Rumble because YouTube is just as likely to shut it down. We're getting close to 1,000 followers on Rumble. We're creeping our way there. We're at like 1,100 on YouTube. So that's like a 40 or 30% growth over the last 30 days. Things are going very well over there. And it does have a snowball effect. It's the way of exponential growth. The more people you have, the more people are sharing your content, the more views that solicits, the more followers you get. So to gain your first 1,000 followers is much harder to gain your next 1,000, or isn't. To gain your first 1,000 followers is a lot harder than gaining your second 1,000. And to gain your first 5,000 is a lot harder than to gain your first 50,000, and so on and so forth, because of that exponential effect of reshares. So that's why it's critical that you guys reshare, you engage with the algorithm by putting comments, liking it, following, hitting the notification thing so you're alerted when I go and post something new. And soon, I'll probably actually start live streaming on YouTube. I've tried to stream on Rumble for 3 different times over the last month, and all 3 of them got shut down. I don't know what the deal is with that. It's very frustrating. So next time I do a live stream, can't do it on Rumble, can't do it on Instagram. I'll probably try to do it on YouTube, which might just be an invitation for my whole account to get banned there too. Just fucking goes to show that this shit is difficult. It is difficult, but we're gonna win, okay? We are going to win, I promise. Have faith, have courage, be bold in talking about these subjects. You got to get your education and your articulation right, though. I haven't had a conversation with anybody, whether they're a Jew, a black person, a woman, talking about the woman problem to a woman, talking about the Jewish problem to a Jew, talking about the black stuff with black people. Not a single conversation I have had has that person come out and said, you're clearly just motivated by hatred. They totally understand. After they give me a chance to speak through how I came to these opinions, they understand that it's 100% rational. There's nothing immoral here. There's no incitement to go and be violent towards other people. None of that exists. And anybody who actually, in good faith, sits down and listens to me understands that. And that's true about Nick Fuentes as well. No matter what people say about him, he hates blacks, he hates women, he hates Jews. That is slander. Okay, so I'm really going to wrap it up here, you guys. Sweating like a Negro doing math over here. Got to get into the gym, man. Got to get this back day done. So, Until next time, you guys, I love you. Christ is King.
Beholden to truth. Christ culture. White identity. And fitness lifestyle. Red pilling the masses. On the front lines. Against the synagogue of Satan.